Silence in the Blood, the true story of Lindalisar. Before we continue, I want to send greetings to each and every one of you, especially to you who are watching me right now. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, turn on the notification bell, like, share, and comment. You can also follow me as Lindalisar on TikTok. You can also follow me on Instagram as Silence in the Blood, the true story of Lindalisar. Alright, let's continue. One day we tried to escape. My sister and I saved up money little by little and walked without knowing where to go. We didn't have a plan. We didn't know how to survive out there. We only knew that we wanted to leave. We left with the hope that walking would take us somewhere else, to a different life, to a place where we wouldn't be mistreated. But we were just girls. Night fell and fear caught up with us. We had to go back. We returned in fear, making up excuses, knowing that punishment might be waiting for us. That day I understood that the desire to escape doesn't come from rebellion. It comes from pain, from being tired of living in fear, from wanting to save yourself even if you don't know how. There were moments when the pain was just too much. One of those days left a mark on me forever, because it wasn't just a moment of sadness, it was a moment when my sister's suffering broke me inside. That day, it all started when one of my stepmother's sons said that my sister had eaten some of my father's food. To me, if that had happened, it wasn't out of malice, it was because she was hungry. We were girls in need, girls who often looked for ways to calm our hunger and fear. Even so, without being completely sure of what had happened, my stepmother punished my sister in a way I have never been able to forget. Right in front of me, she grabbed her hand and burned her skin. My sister screamed in pain. Then she beat her with a wire, and her back was left covered in welts. I watched all of this without being able to defend her, without being able to stop it, feeling a helplessness far too great for a child. But the punishment didn't end there. Then she took her to the back of the house, out to the woods, where everything was dark. There she forced her to kneel on a grater on the ground while her knees bled, and put her on top of an anthill. She also put a cinder block on her head, a weight that made everything even more cruel. The ants were biting her, eating her skin while she cried out in pain, desperate. I listened to her screams, unable to do anything. I saw my sister with her hand burned, her back scarred, her knees injured, and her body suffering from the ants. That moment was seared into my soul. Her pain was also my pain. The next day, when morning came, my father noticed something strange on her feet and asked what was wrong with her. My stepmother answered as if it were nothing, saying that it was because she didn't bathe. That answer hurt me, because I knew what had happened and I knew my sister was suffering. That pain was what drove me to the highway. I kept hearing my sister's screams in my ears. I walked, crying, carrying inside me everything I had seen. I lay down on the highway looking at the moon, because I didn't know how to get that suffering out of me. At that moment, I was a girl broken inside, a girl who didn't understand why she had to witness so much pain. Near where I lay down was Joseito's store, the same man who always helped us by letting us buy things on credit so we wouldn't be mistreated when we ran out of soap, sugar, baby bottles, or food. That place was close to that memory, close to that moment when my pain reached a point I could no longer bear. At that moment, there was a little dog with me named Chivila. She lay down next to me in silence, as if she understood my sadness and as if she didn't want to leave me alone. Sometimes animals keep us company without words, and Chivila was there for me during one of the darkest moments of my childhood. After being there, I gathered my strength, got up, and sat down on a curb. A minute after I moved, a truck passed right over the spot where I had been lying. I feel that in that moment, God was watching over me. I feel that an angel protected me so that nothing would happen to me. Chivila stayed in my memory because she was with me at a time when I felt that no one could understand me. That day I understood that suffering can lead a girl to very dark places, but I also understood that God can hold you up when you are about to lose yourself completely. Maybe many people wonder why we didn't talk, why we didn't say what was happening, why we didn't ask for help like some children might do now. But at that time, we lived in too much fear. My father would leave for work very early, sometimes as early as 5 in the morning, and he would come back at night, often at 9 or 10 o'clock. While he was gone, fear stayed with us. We were afraid to speak because we knew that if we said anything, the abuse could get worse. The beatings weren't just beatings, they were a threat. It was as if every punishment told us, don't speak, don't say anything. They pinched us, punished us, hit us with objects, and made us feel that speaking up could bring more pain. We didn't tell our mother either because she was mentally ill and we were afraid. We didn't want to burden her with more pain or cause more problems. We were little girls, and in our minds we thought that if we spoke up, we would be punished again. Today I share this because there are many children who stay silent out of fear. Not all children have the strength to speak up. Not all children have someone to turn to. Sometimes a child's silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means they're too afraid. My adolescence was not normal. It wasn't a time of freedom, joy, or peaceful discovery. It was a time of survival. I got together with someone at a young age, trying to get out of that environment. Many of the decisions I made came from necessity, from pain, and from the desire to escape. I had no guidance, no stability, and none of the tools a person needs to make decisions calmly. I made decisions from a place of hurt, from a tired heart, from a little girl who just wanted to stop suffering. It wasn't freedom, it was survival. Sometimes people judge without understanding that some decisions are born from a life where you feel like there's no way out. After having 2 children, I went through a very difficult situation with my 3rd pregnancy. It wasn't a simple loss. It was something marked by circumstances that were not entirely in my control. That experience left a deep wound in my life. Then came pregnancy number 4 and pregnancy number 5. My life as a mother was always about struggle, sacrifice, and responsibility. For me, being a mother was never about comfort. It was about effort, about necessity, about trials. Each child, each pregnancy, each loss, and each decision stayed within me as part of a story that marked me deeply. I didn't come to the United States because I wanted to. I was brought here when I was 15 years old. I came to please my mother, but deep down I felt that something was not going to turn out well. That feeling came true. I arrived in a country I hadn't chosen. I didn't come thinking of abandoning anyone or hurting anyone. I came as a teenager, following a family decision, and ended up facing another battle. Many times I wanted to leave the country. Many times I felt like I didn't belong, but over time I adapted. Today I have 2 children who live with me in the United States, and I decided to stay here peacefully with them. Even so, I never forget that coming to this country was not something I asked for. After my family brought me to the United States, they left me alone. They turned their backs on me when I needed support the most. While they were doing well, I was in need, without stability, without direction, and without knowing what was going to happen to me. That marked me deeply, because it's one thing for life to be hard, and another to feel that the very family who brought you here isn't there when you need them the most. Later, when I started to do a little better, some people began to seek me out of convenience. People who didn't open their doors to me when I was struggling later wanted to get close when they thought I was doing better. That taught me a lot about convenience, about family, and about who is really there when you have nothing. There was a time when I was homeless, pregnant with my 4th child. I had already lost my 3rd pregnancy. I had no stability or security. I didn't know where to go or what to do. I remember I only had $1. I bought myself a soda and my baby in my belly calmed down. I was crying, holding on to a light pole, desperate, with a life inside me and nowhere safe to be. That moment was one of the hardest of my life. While others were under a roof, I was out on the street, afraid. While others slept peacefully, I was wondering what would happen to me and to the child I was carrying inside. At that moment, a woman I didn't know appeared. She gave me a transit card and $20. When I looked, she was already gone. To me, that was like an angel, a help from God in the midst of the darkness. It may seem like little to other people, but to me, it meant hope. It meant that, even though I felt alone, someone with humanity could still appear. That woman didn't know my whole story, but she showed up at a time when I felt like I had no one. That memory stayed with me because it was a light in a time when everything seemed dark. Despite everything, I kept going. Without support, without stability, and without a family to hold me up, I kept going. I went through hunger, fear, loneliness, and despair, but I didn't give up. There was something inside me that pushed me to live. I didn't always know how I was going to make it, but I kept going. I would fall and get back up, cry and keep going. I felt broken, but I kept going. My life was a constant struggle, but also a test of endurance. I didn't get here because everything was easy. I got here because, even though many times I didn't know how, I stayed alive and kept moving forward. I have children in my life, and I always tried to give my best for them. I have 2 children who live with me in the United States, and I also have 2 children in the Dominican Republic. A very large part of my pain comes from those 2 children in the Dominican Republic, whom I was trying to bring to the United States to give them a better future. As a mother, my intention was always to protect them, help them, and pave the way for them. Even though my efforts were often misunderstood, my love for them was always there. I worked, I sacrificed, I sent money, I helped when they were sick, and I responded whenever there was a need. Many times, I did the impossible to be present from afar. When I was doing the paperwork to bring my children from the Dominican Republic, they were young. The boy was around 16 years old, and the girl was about 15. Before the process could move forward, conflicts began. My daughter started saying very hurtful things, wishing me dead. I was desperate and asked several people what I should do. Some people told me to leave them there. I even consulted with a lawyer, and they told me that bringing them could become a problem for the country and for me. That hurt me because my intention was to help them, not to harm them. I wanted to bring them here to give them an opportunity, but the situation started to become a very heavy emotional burden. While I was fighting for them, people were filling their heads with lies. They were told that I didn't love them, that I only cared about the children I had here in the United States. That wasn't true. I did the impossible for them. I worked, sent money, sent clothes, helped when they were sick, and responded whenever there was a need. But while I was doing all that, other people were destroying my image in front of them. Their family and their father were putting ideas into their heads. That was very painful. There were even times when my daughter sent me screenshots showing how they spoke badly about me, sowing resentment. That was psychological. It was as if little by little they were being distanced from me. After a lot of pain, I tried to make peace with them and with the family. They made me believe that everything could get better, but the reality was different. My daughter started demanding things from me related to documents, and I never told her no. I just said that I was busy, that she should wait, but that turned into a lot of pressure. She and her father were pressuring me at the same time, sending me messages and escalating the conflict. Even when I was preparing the documents to bring them to the United States, they were still minors, so I needed their father's signature to be able to take them out of the country. That's when their father went so far as to say that if I went to get that signature, not even the devil would sign. Later on, when new pressures started regarding documents and passports, I felt that burden on me again. I noticed that they would come to me to solve things, to sign, to send money, or to help, but many times they wouldn't include me in important decisions. That made me feel used and left out at the same time. When my daughter started threatening me and speaking to me very harshly, I ended up telling her that if anything happened to me, I would hold her and her family responsible. After that, many people stayed silent as if nothing had happened. That silence also hurt me because it was as if my pain didn't matter. My daughter even went so far as to threaten me if I went to the Dominican Republic. That hurt me and scared me so much that I filed a report with the police thinking about my future safety. My son also distanced himself, blocked me, and stopped talking to me. I felt that they were communicating with each other, sharing messages, and leaving me out as if I were a stranger. But I saw, understood, and felt everything. I wasn't stupid. That pain as a mother was a deep wound because I loved them while I felt like they were erasing me. There is no easy pain when a mother feels that her children are far away, not just physically, but also emotionally. I helped my children's family a lot. When their grandmother was sick or needed something, I would send money, clothes, and things. Sometimes I would send items that they would later sell or give to other people. When I found out about some things, I still tried not to argue. I even said it was fine, that they could sell it for her and the children. I kept quiet about many things to avoid more problems, but all of that hurt me. Helping without being appreciated also became part of my burden, because it wasn't just about sending things, it was feeling that my effort wasn't seen, that my sacrifice was used and then forgotten. Family betrayal and environment. They would communicate among themselves, send each other messages, share conversations, and leave me out. There was even an occasion when the children's grandmother accidentally sent me a voice note that was my own voice. When I asked her why she had sent me my own audio, she said she was going to delete it. That made me realize they were sharing my messages among themselves without me knowing. At another time, when my daughter was on good terms with me, she herself told me that they had a group where they shared all the messages, including mine. In the Dominican Republic, I also experienced difficult relationships and environments. I tried to help, support, and build, but I received criticism, judgment, and emotional abuse. I also saw how some people change when money, convenience, or appearances are involved. That mix of relationships, secrets, messages, and environment kept piling new wounds on top of old ones that had already been there for a long time. Sometimes you think that pain stays in childhood, but life showed me that many wounds keep appearing in other ways. Everything kept piling up: childhood, poverty, abuse, abandonment, losses, betrayals, rejections, lies, and the pain of my children. For years I carried it all in silence. I cried a lot, kept quiet a lot, endured a lot. On the outside, I kept going, but inside, I carried an entire story that no one fully knew. All of that stayed inside me as a burden, but it also began to turn into a voice, because there comes a moment when the pain weighs so much that you have to let it out somehow. One day I woke up. I realized that I didn't deserve to live like that, or to keep surrounding myself with people who made me feel less. I decided to change, to heal, and to tell my truth. That awakening was the moment when I began to understand that my pain could become a voice. I didn't want to keep carrying everything in silence. I wanted to give shape to my story. I started to see my life differently. I understood that everything I had lived through could become something bigger. Not just pain, but purpose. Out of all that pain, Silencio en la Sangre was born. It was born from family silence, from hidden pain, from wounds no one sees, and from everything I lived through without being able to speak. This story is born as a truth, as a testimony, and as a way to heal. First, it was born to be told as a documentary, as a real-life story. It wasn't created to invent, but to release what had been kept inside for years. Silencio en la Sangre is my way of saying that within the same blood, there can also be secrets, wounds, betrayals, and pains that no one sees, but they can also become a voice. I tell my story because there are many children today who might also be staying silent out of fear. I tell my story because a person can live for years with hidden wounds and still find the strength to speak. I tell my story because I could no longer keep carrying so much suffering in silence. Because what we went through should not be repeated with other children. Because people need to understand that when a child doesn't speak, it's not always because nothing is happening. Sometimes it's because they're afraid, because they're being threatened, because they don't know who to turn to, or because they think that if they speak up, everything will get worse. This story isn't told to cause harm. It's told to heal, to bear witness, to make sure my voice isn't lost, to give my truth a place. At that time, the children wanted to go spend a vacation at my father's house. The boy wanted to get out of the environment where he was living because he said that the stepmother spoke badly to him and his sister. He wanted to leave there, and that's why I spoke with their father. I told him that the boy wanted to go to my father's house and asked him what we were going to do. He replied that it was fine to let him go. Later, the girl also said she wanted to go. So both of them went to my father's house with the intention of spending a vacation there. At first, they felt calm and were doing well. Later, they wanted to stay there, and I understood that they felt better in that environment. I told them to stay calm, not to hang out with just anyone. It wasn't because I was an antisocial person or because I wanted to take away their freedom. It was because I grew up in that environment and I knew how some people from around there could be. My intention was always to protect them, take care of them, and prevent anyone from putting ideas in their heads or leading them down a path that wasn't good for them. Over time, they started hanging out with friends from the same neighborhood, and relatives from their father's side also began to show up. For example, one of their father's brothers went to visit the children at my dad's house, even though he had never visited them there before. That really caught my attention. I felt that those visits started because the children were there, because they were in the process, and because if they came to the United States, that could also become a benefit for others. I wasn't completely sure whether they really wanted the children to come or not, but I did feel that there were interests surrounding them. When the uncle would come to pick them up or visit them, he would sometimes bring food or clothes, as if I didn't care about them, or as if my father wasn't looking after them. That hurt me because I was present, even if I was far away. I would send money, I was attentive to their needs, and I tried to fulfill my role as a mother. After those visits, especially the boy would change his attitude, and even though the girl still hadn't changed her way with me. But he would come back different, more distant, with a different way of responding and behaving. There were times when one of them was fine and the other was angry. When the boy was angry, the girl could be fine, and when the girl was fine, the boy could be distant. It was like a combination of changes that I didn't fully understand, but I could definitely feel. There were also times when they would go to visit relatives on their father's side or go to the countryside. My father would let them go, trusting them, but when they came back, especially the boy, he would return changed. That made me think that people were telling them things and putting ideas in their heads. I remember that on one occasion the boy even said that they didn't have to tell me everything. That worried me a lot because I was their mother. Even if they were at my father's house, they were still my responsibility. I was far away physically, but I was still looking out for them, sending money, and trying to take care of what I could from a distance. There also started to be comments and criticism about my father's house and the place where they were, as if they wanted to make them see that they weren't well there, even though they themselves had chosen to go and stay there because they felt more at ease. That contradiction hurt me and made me feel like there were people trying to change their minds. Amid all of that, there were messages saying that now they did care about my father, questioning why they hadn't looked for him before, saying that when they were little, he wasn't there for them, and that now they suddenly saw him as a good person. They also spoke as if now mom and dad were the bad ones. In a screenshot of a message, my daughter replied that he wasn't the best, but that they were fine there. That phrase stuck with me because it made me feel that there was already an emotional influence over them. Over time, my children grew up and made important decisions at a very young age. My son got together with a partner when he was still a minor, around 16 years old, and my daughter also went down that path at a very young age, approximately 15. All of that happened without my knowledge or my consent, while other people were aware of what was going on. Meanwhile, I felt like they only came to me for problems, for documents, for money, or to solve their needs, but not to consider me as their mother when it came to important decisions in their lives. That hurt me a lot because I was always there when they needed me. Then came the blockages, the distance, the hints, and the absences. My son also grew distant, and even though he didn't always say things directly, I could sense a silent disrespect. There were subtle hints on social media, situations where I was blocked, birthdays where I was left out, Christmases where they disappeared, special days when no one remembered me. That hurt because I always remembered them. For Christmas I was there, for Three Kings Day I was there, when there was illness I was there, for school clothes I was there, for birthdays I was there, for any need I was there, all year long I was there, in whatever way I could, but many times I felt that no one remembered me as a mother. That pain was very strong. It wasn't just sadness, it was feeling that all my effort, my sacrifice, and my love went unnoticed. It was feeling that I gave, solved problems, cared, and responded, but when it came to valuing me, I was left out. All of that is part of my story because it shows how a mother can love from afar, sacrifice from afar, and still feel erased. I'm not telling this to hurt anyone. I'm telling it because it was part of my truth, my suffering, and the burden I carried for many years. Thank you for watching Silence in the Blood, the true story of Lindalisar. See you in the next video. Until next time.